Right, we are on, and winter keeps rolling along. Today is April 12th. The rest of the country is having flowers everywhere, mowing lawns. As you know, I'm in New Mexico, and short sleeve shirt is all I need. But Tom, it sounds like there's something interesting going on. It's been a lot of confusion. The National Weather Service is behind it. You've been a little slow. Where do you stand on what's going to happen? What's your confidence level?
Confidence level is low, especially in the Twin Cities metro and Rochester, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, basically southeastern Minnesota, east central Minnesota, and western Wisconsin. My confidence is still pretty low. I don't think there's confusion, Bill. Uh, to me, the forecasts that have been coming out of the National Weather Service and other outlets have been pretty consistent. And that is that they're expecting heavy snow, right? I think we can all say that's been the going message here, especially recently here in the last 12 to 24 hours. There's a winter storm watch out for our area. So I think the message is pretty clear and consistent from those media outlets. Of course, I have some reservations, and I've made them very clear that I think that a bust potential certainly exists with this storm system, especially east of the I-35 corridor, okay? If you're in southwestern Minnesota, eastern South Dakota, especially southeastern South Dakota, Nebraska, northwestern Iowa, I think you're a lock for heavy snow, and some of those areas may get a foot to 2 feet of snow plus. I just don't think that those big snows are going to hit here, and we can focus on that as we go through.
For starters, if it's 50 degrees today, woohoo, big time celebration, third 50-degree temperature of the year. Tom, that's sick. But anyway, I mean, that immediately that puts things at an uphill challenge, it would seem to me, to really get accumulation falling. But I guess if it snows hard enough, it can take care of that. So
well, yeah, that's a great point, Bill. By the way, before we get into these questions that you have, I think you brought up something that's very, very important. We're getting into mid-April here. Sun angle is high in the sky. Now, granted, when it's cloudy out, you don't get as much radiation coming to the surface of the earth. But still, during the day, it's tough to get accumulating snow. Okay, it really needs to snow hard. It probably needs to snow at about a half an inch to an inch per hour for you to get accumulation, especially on the heavily traveled roads and surfaces. Okay, and the bulk of this snow, at least for the Twin Cities and southeast Minnesota, is supposed to fall during the day on Saturday. Okay, so yeah, we may get some decent snows on Saturday, but it's going to be compacting. It's going to be melting. We're going to go through that whole charade that we always go through this time of the year when it snows, where, yeah, it may accumulate to 4 inches if you're measuring it every half hour, but if you go out there 3-4 hours down the road, there may only be an inch on the ground. So that's one of the big problems.
So, Tom, I don't know if you want to, I can start with a couple questions that we talked about and maybe do that in conjunction with a couple maps.
Yep, yeah, exactly. Let's do that.
All right, let me flip over here. So, Sam asked to ask of you that last night you referenced the NAM pulling back the moisture to the west, and Minneapolis would be fighting some dry air, and that there was definite bust potential. So that's why you were hesitating on big snows in Minneapolis. Now, 24 hours later, the NAM is showing Minneapolis in the bullseye. So now that it shows this, is it believable, or are you disregarding that and wanting to look at a different model? What's your standpoint on that?
Okay, well, that's a great question, because obviously this the person that asked this question has been studying them over the last 24 to 48 hours. But I'm not quite agreeing with what this individual is saying. They're saying that we're still in the bullseye, and I don't really see that. This is what you're seeing right now, Bill, is the NAM NEST computer model guidance, okay? So it's just a little bit of a variation of the NAM, but still, it's basically the NAM computer model. And watch what happens as we go through time here. Now, this is total snow, or at least potential snow over time, okay? This is by Friday night, by about midnight. Look at what's happening. Here's the Twin Cities, Bill.
Yeah.
You don't see much, right?
Right.
Look at where all the action is. It's out here in South Dakota. That's where that heavy snow is, at least tomorrow night. Now, watch what happens as we go into Saturday morning. This is by about, let's just go to noon on Saturday, okay? This is noon. Here's the Twin Cities. Take a look at what are you seeing, Bill? You're seeing about 1 to 3 inches of snow.
Yep.
By about noon or early afternoon on Saturday.
What if you
from
keep
the
going?
NAM computer model? Okay, and if that's falling during the day on Saturday, that's going to compact, and it's certainly not snowing at 1 inch an hour, at least not Saturday morning, if you believe this computer model guidance. Okay?
Does that guidance go out? Does that guidance go out any further?
It does, but before we go out further, let's take a look at where the real snow is, at least where this computer model depicts it. Southwestern Minnesota, nearly 2 feet of snow into southeastern South Dakota. So I'm really confident, Bill, that those areas are going to get hammered. But take a look. Even let's go a little bit further through time. Okay, yeah, there is snow's really trying to get going here over east central Minnesota and west central Wisconsin to where it accumulates to 6 to 8 inches of snow. But look, here's parts of the Twin Cities. This is the eastern metro, 4 or 5 inches of snow. That's falling during the day, Bill. That comes down to about 1 to 2 inches by the end of the day. Okay, so you can already see what we're going to be dealing with. And look here, here's the Rochester area, hardly anything. Okay, and there's a good reason why the NAM computer model, the NAM nest, isn't showing much down in Rochester, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But my concern is that this area of no snow is going to push even a little bit further north in the Twin Cities, and that this sharp gradient here on the north side, and look how sharp this gradient is, Bill. We're going from what, 2 feet of snow to nothing in about a 50-mile drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what if that gradient sinks south about 50 miles? That's right across the Twin Cities, Bill. To me, just looking at this guidance, Bill, this potential snow guidance, it's a huge red flag with this snow system, with the storm system. If I'm the National Weather Service, if I'm the media outlets right now, I am very nervous about predicting 6 to 10 inches of snow in the Twin Cities when I look at this guidance. All right.
You know, the other thing is when the National Weather Service will say 6 to 10 inches, they need to clarify whether that's the amount of snow that's going to fall, but the accumulation would be 3 or 4 inches. Because people think about accumulation, they don't. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I do know what you mean, and you're right. I mean, people think that when they walk out their door Sunday morning, there's going to be 10 inches of snow on the ground, when really that 6 to 10 inches probably fell during the day Saturday and into the evening, and it compacts down to 4 to 5 inches. So yes, that needs to be clarified. Now, you're probably wondering, Bill, why in the heck would there be so much snow in southwestern Minnesota and then it just doesn't quite make it east, or at least the big snow totals don't quite make it east into Wisconsin and eastern Minnesota? And we're going to look at that right now. And of course, a lot of it, Bill, has to do with the jet stream, right? Yeah. How many times do we talk about the jet stream, Bill?
1 out of 100 times.
Yeah, we do a lot, right? And here's the jet stream. And let's just go back to Saturday morning. And this might get a little technical, Bill, but it's really important when it comes to weather. And this to me is like weather 101, because if you don't understand the jet stream, you're going to be in a lot of trouble in trying to predict the weather. But anyway, here's a jet streak, Bill. This is the European computer model. Here's a jet streak stretching from Texas all the way up to right into southeastern Minnesota, okay? And what a jet streak does is, number one, it draws up warm, moist air, okay? Especially when it's digging south like it is here into the Gulf of Mexico region, okay? So you can be pretty much assured that warm Gulf moisture is going to make it all the way up into Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and then it's going to actually be pinwheeling back into southwestern or southeastern Minnesota and east central Minnesota. Okay, so warm, moist air is going to be streaming from the Gulf of Mexico towards the Twin Cities and Rochester, Minnesota. Okay, there's going to be a cold layer of air at the surface, so it's going to have to go up and over that cold layer of air. Hence, you get precipitation. All right, Bill. So we got all that correct. Now, let's go through time and let's look at Saturday evening, okay? That jet stream barely moves, which means we're still going to have warm Gulf of Mexico air flowing up into southeastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin. That means trouble, at least for snow lovers, because the likelihood of the precipitation staying as liquid or as sleet, ice, I think is pretty high, even as we get into Saturday afternoon. Okay, we have to wait until about Saturday night, and here's the jet stream Saturday night. We have to wait till Saturday night before we get on the other side or the western side of this jet streak.
So you're concerned that the changeover might come late.
I am very concerned about that. And by the time the changeover happens, this storm system may start to lose some of its punch. Okay, but regardless, those of you that are expecting a foot of snow on the ground by Saturday morning in the Twin Cities or Rochester or Eau Claire, Wisconsin, I think you're going to be disappointed. That just doesn't seem to be in the cards. And a lot of it is because of this jet stream and where this jet streak is located. Okay, because not only does it bring up warm Gulf of Mexico air, but it also gets air from New Mexico, Bill, right where you are, right?
Yep.
And it swings it north too. That's dry air that comes into this storm system.
Oh, yeah.
So we could be dealing with a dry slot over portions of eastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin. We could be dealing with liquid more than snow. And let's not forget, Bill, there's this jet streak up here over the Great Lakes. Well, it forces dry air down into northern Minnesota. Okay, so that's why we're going to have that sharp, very sharp gradient of snow located right about here, because there's going to be dry air to the north that's going to be pressing south into this band of snow. So
Tom,
I feel there's a lot of red flags, Bill, at least looking at this jet structure right now.
Tom, one thing that surprised me is that the National Weather Service has talked about a certain accumulation of ice. And it usually in the case, it seems to be in the spring, it's either rain or it becomes snow if the rain comes down so hard that it cools the air. And it seems like ice is more of a midwinter phenomenon where the ground is so cold that it doesn't warm up quickly. So I'm surprised that there's much talk about accumulating ice. Are you?
Well, I'm not, because we've got such cold air in place for this time of year. Even though we hit 50 today, Bill, the truth is that we have a ton of cold air for this time of the year over us. And watch what happens. And I'm bringing up the NAM computer model now, Bill. And let's actually zoom into the Midwest here. And what I want you to look at is this is 700 millibars, Bill, and this is the temperatures at 700 millibars. This is about 5,000 or 10,000 feet above us in the atmosphere, okay? And this is how we get ice, because watch what happens as we head through time. Okay, this is Friday afternoon. This is Friday evening at about 7 o'clock. Look at the temperatures just above us. They are above freezing, okay? Yep. And here's the Twin Cities metro here. We're at about, 36, 38 degrees Fahrenheit, 2 degrees Celsius. Okay, that's warm enough to melt any snow that's falling from the clouds, to melt it into a liquid form, okay?
Yep.
Now, watch what continues to happen as we go through time on Friday night and then into Saturday morning.
Doesn't move that.
This is Saturday at about 10 a.m. Our temperatures just above us at about 5 to 10,000 feet are still right around freezing.
Okay.
So there may be a thick enough and warm enough layer of air above us that snow, it may be forming in the clouds, but it melts before it hits the ground. And then, of course, it's going to be so cold at the surface. And let's go to our surface temperatures, Bill. And one moment. Let's go through time. Here it is Saturday morning. Look at the surface temperatures in the Twin Cities. We're talking in the mid to upper 20s. Okay, and that's the same case down in Rochester. So this is almost a perfect scenario or setup for ice, which would include freezing rain or sleet. Okay, and we all know that if you get freezing rain and the dreaded sleet, that often cuts into your snow totals. And I get a funny feeling that that's going to happen right in this area from about the Twin Cities south to the Minnesota-Iowa border and then east into Wisconsin. So I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that this could bust.
And you also want to clarify, Tom, that when you said bust earlier, bust doesn't necessarily mean there's not going to be a storm. It just means less snow than might be forecast.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt that there's going to be a storm for southern Minnesota and western Wisconsin. I don't think that there's any doubt that there's going to be difficult travel conditions, especially due to ice. But I also do think there is going to be some snow, so don't get me wrong. But just given the time of day on Saturday, given the fact that this might, a majority of this might fall as liquid or ice pellets, I think it's going to eat into the snow totals, especially as you go from I-35W on east. By the way, Bill, what you're looking at now, this is a beautiful looking storm right now already. It's what, Thursday evening, Bill? And take a look at this infrared satellite loop. This
where's the center of it?
Okay, you mean where is this? The state lines and where this is located?
Yeah, I mean, where's the actual storm right now?
Yeah. So what you're seeing, okay, here's Montana, right? And here's Wyoming. You can see it churning right out here in Idaho, Utah, western Wyoming. That's where the storm is churning as we speak. And it's moving slow. It's moving painfully slow. That's another problem that we have, Bill, by the way, because the slower that this storm moves, the more warm air can get entrained into the storm.
The less progressive it is.
Yep, the less progressive it is, the more opportunities for warm Gulf moisture to come up into southeastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin, okay? But anyway, here it is churning, beautiful looking storm already over the northern and central Rockies. And when that pulls out into the plain states, Bill, this thing is going to be a severe weather producer. I don't think there's any doubt about that, too. There's likely going to be a significant severe weather outbreak in Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, even into Iowa. And then that actually is, the storm is so dynamic that we're likely going to get thunderstorms here, even in southern Minnesota, as early as tomorrow morning. So don't be surprised if some weird stuff is happening tomorrow morning in and around southern Minnesota and western Wisconsin. And what I mean by that, Bill, is we'll probably be getting some sleet, some heavy rain, and then it may rain so hard that our atmosphere may actually.
You froze up. Tom, you froze up there, at least for me.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you, but I missed what you said about there's so much rain that what might happen?
Yeah. Well, the lift in our atmosphere tomorrow morning due to these thunderstorms may be so strong that it actually cools our atmosphere even more than what we expect. That's called dynamic cooling, Bill, right? We've talked about that before. And then that could actually lead to a spit of snow or a brief period of heavy snow. It's a wild card as we get into the storm system. So
Tom, there's another question that I wanted to pass along. Tim asked you, well, I guess you've really addressed this, but he wanted to know if the storm still smells. Those are your words on Twitter. Wanted to wait until the storm was ashore, and so are you still gun shy? I guess the answer is yes, and you really answered that.
Yeah, I am, but I do want to show everybody one more map. But by the way, the one of the models, it actually was the NAM computer model, the parent model, showed that there was going to be 2 feet of snow in the Twin Cities on its latest model run. So just take that with a grain of salt, okay? But one thing I did want to show you is, I mean, I've got to go back to the European computer model, Bill, because you know how much we talk about that and how important it is for us in our forecasting. And I do think it's very important to show this because this was the latest computer model guidance for snowfall across southern Minnesota and Wisconsin. Now, this makes me very nervous because it's showing well over 1 foot of snow in the Twin Cities, southwestern Minnesota, all the way east into Wisconsin, where it actually prints out well over 2 feet of snow. Now, if this verifies, we're going to be busting shovels here in the Twin Cities metro, even as far south as Rochester, and then east into Eau Claire. So, again, I don't want it to make it sound like it's not going to snow, because the majority of the computer model guidances up to this point have been showing heavy snow. But I get really worried this time of the year with the warm air that's in place, with the warm air coming up out of the Gulf of Mexico. I just get very worried that there may be a bust. And I think we all need to watch and monitor these computer models closely. And of course, Bill, continue to pay attention to the Minnesota Forecaster and to Novak Weather. They need to be following us on Facebook, on Twitter, because this is where you get the best information, right?
Yeah. You know, the National Weather Service, you know, I thought they might go to a warning, but they have not. So they're probably, that's probably saying something.
That is saying something, Bill. I'm really excited to see the 7 p.m. guidance come out. It comes down and is available to everybody, including the National Weather Service, by about 9 or 10. If that comes out gangbusters for snow over the Twin Cities, then I'm pretty confident the National Weather Service will upgrade to a warning right away. But if it shows that it's pulling back on snow amounts, don't be surprised if the National Weather Service starts backpedaling a little bit. So yeah, we'll see with those evening model runs.
And again, even if they say 6 to 10 inches, there's just no way that amount of snow is going to accumulate anyway, given the time of day and compaction.
Well, there is a way, Bill. There's no doubt it could happen.
But we know in mid-April, if it's snowing during the day, it's just not going to be the same as a 6 to 10 inch forecast in January.
I agree with you. That is correct. That is correct. And climatologically speaking, Bill, it's rare. It's rare to get a foot to a foot and a half of snow in mid-April. You know, I haven't specifically looked at the statistics, over the last 150 years, but maybe we've had 2 or 3. So
yeah, Tom, I moved to Minnesota in 1984 in February, and in April, never forget it. And I posted a picture. I don't know if anybody saw it, but on April 30th, I remember going on my bike in shorts on a Saturday morning, and it was like near 70. And then it snowed that night, and we got, well, officially it was 9.8 inches, and it was probably in my memory was probably 7 or 8 inches. That was April 30th, but I think it snowed at night too. So
yeah,
it can happen.
It can happen. All right, Bill.
All right. Good information there, Tom.
All right. See you, buddy.
Talk to you later. All right. Bye-bye.